Okay, good morning, everybody. Hope you are doing well after this weekend. Have some time to read something about Sir Thomas Wyalt, his poem. Okay, and of course, like having good impression about the previous class. So as usual, let us start by listening to a report. Who's ready to read her report? Who's willing to read her report? Okay. Go ahead.
Last lecture was very formal because the cameras were founded. All of us were not in the normal state, included Dr.أكرم. Anyway, Dr.أكرم wrote some part of poem which was not written in the right way as a poem. It's called 40 Love. We were surprised. Then he wrote another poem which was so strange one. It's called An Anti-T. So he asked us to put it in a metrical language. One student did it, and all of us started laughing. Then he read it like a poem. It was a Chinese language. In fact, last lecture was very funny, and it was a good to start our day with that.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, again, is anybody willing to? Yes? So far, it's been positive response. But again, if you have a problem, you can complain. It's not a big deal, you know. Okay.
Really, it was an interesting lecture last week. I admire the system of education by distance very much. How it's beautiful to find my lecture when I need it on my computer, despite my feeling in restriction because of picturing devices in more than one place. One of my happiness reasons also the easiness of the poetry introduction that make me trust in the poetry material. Okay,
thank you very much. So far, we have positive. Next time, I'm going to ask randomly. I'm not going to tell you who's willing, okay? Now, what about, like, the poem? I mean, Who's Lost to Hand? What about the poet himself, Sir Thomas Wyalt? I think you had time to prepare and to write a response. So I need somebody like with a response, and then I have to ask each student. Okay? Who's ready to read a response? Yes, please.
When Dr. Habib asked us to write our first response about our first gorgeous poem, Who's Lost to Hunt, I knew that we are going to write about our first impression when we read the poem for the first time. At the same time, first impressions differ widely and it's very unreliable. I may like the poem, but the other may not. I may enjoy it, but my friend may not. All these questions came to my mind and make me a little bit confused. But the teacher said that the first impression may be differ from one person to another, but at the same time there is one common understanding and realization come after your realization to the language and the use of the language and the historical background about the poem and the poet himself. We are lucky to begin with one of the best sonnet ever written by Wyalt, which is Who's Lost to Hunt. It held by Wyalt's imitation for the Lime, written by Petrarch, a 14th century Italian poet. He describes a hunt wherein a deer is birthed and ultimately owned by the royal who owns the land. When I looked on the poems on the teacher selected, I realized that these selected poems was the most common poems in certain ages. For example, this poem, written in the Elizabethan age, when the courtly love was one of the most important themes. Courtly love could be defined as unsuccessful love exists between two unequal sides, the lover from non-upper class, but the lady from a high class. And it's worth mentioning that the poet was succeeded in making his personal experience and his personal feeling equals with the public one. It reached our heart, and which make it realistic one. The poem opened with a sort of open invitation to hunters who want to take a capture hind. Furthermore, he describes that Anne, which she is the high-class lady, become the property of the king alone. He introduced the sonnet, which is a form of lyrical poetry written in definite shape. It's written in accordance with a set of rules, and it consists of 14 lines. The first 8 lines from one unit, and the last 6 another. And it was introduced to England by Wyalt. So he considered the father of English sonnet. Moreover, I liked the using of figure of speech that the poet uses in his poem. For instance, the using of alternation in the first, third, and the fifth lines, which add a musical tone to the poem. Metaphors are also used, which is a central figure of speech. When he compared between a lady to a hind in the first line, and when he compares between catching the task of catching her to the task of catching a hind. Another figurative device found in the poem is the paradox, which is clearly seen at the end of the poem. Here, Pylon declares that although she appears tame, it's dangerous to hold her, as she is wild. Talking about the rhyme in the Who's List to Hand, Wyalt uses iambic pentameter, in which a line has 5 pairs of unstressed and stressed syllables. To conclude, I'd like to confess that the poem is amazing, and the poet succeeded in describing his suffering and his sorrow, talking about one of the most important themes in his age, which is courtly love. Last but not least, I would to say that he did succeed in ending it perfectly.
Okay, I think she is worth a big applause. Thank you very much. This is a very, thorough, entire response, which makes up responsibility great. There have been many terms that have been introduced, like the sonnet, courtly love, rhyme, rhythm, the poem, the age. So this is what we are going to do today. But again, like as a point of entry, I would like to go through your response, whether you like the poem or you didn't like the poem. Those who like the poem should say why. Those who didn't like, again, they should justify why they didn't like it. Okay, let's see. Did you like the poem? Was it difficult? Was it easy? I don't know. Okay. Yes, you said your response. Yes, please.
I like the poem because it's not difficult. Its language is clear, and speak about the most commonly subject issue, which is courtly love.
Okay. Again, courtly love is an issue which we have to explain. But were you happy with the poet? Like, you think he's a good poet? Did you admire the poet? Did you? Okay. He's a nice gentleman. Like, okay, the poet, I think in the poem, do you know what is it about? Like, what is it about? Okay. Is it about like a man hunting? Huh? No? What? The poet declares from the very beginning, who's the lost to hunt? I know where is a night. So don't you think this is a hunting position?
For the first
Huh?
we think that he is going to hunt something or hunt a hunt. But when we read it after and after, we discover that he's talking about his mistress.
Okay, so like, this is not like about hunting, but rather, it's about something else. It's about the relationship between, a man and a woman. In this sense, like, this kind of poetry or literature, we call it what? Okay, thank you very much. It is allegorical. Allegory it means like to speak in the terms, about something in the terms of something else. This is what we call allegory. Okay? Good. Let's see somebody else. But like again, we might say, why did he opt to use this style of writing? Why did he use, allegory? Why wasn't he very straightforward? Okay? So why? We might think of an answer later. Good. Let's see somebody else. Go ahead. You like the poem, or you didn't like did you like the poet, the poem? Okay? Okay, let's see. What about the poet? Have you read something about the poet? You mentioned the sonnet. What is a sonnet? What is a sonnet? Yes?
Poem consists of 14 lines.
Yes, so it is a poem formed of 14 lines. Now, you said, like, in her response, she said Sir Thomas Wyalt was the father of the English sonnet. What does this mean? Like, was he the one who created the sonnet? No. Was the, yes?
He brings it from Rome because...
Yeah, he brought it from Rome. Very good. He borrowed that form from Petrarch. Petrarch was a famous Italian poet. And, you know, Sir Thomas Wyalt had the chance, because he was an ambassador, he was a courtier living in the court of, Henry VIII. He had the chance to go to Rome, and he met Petrarch, he translated some of his poems, and he started to use, this type of, or this form in order to express a very traditional English theme, which is courtly love. Again, courtly love is a term which requires some definition. What is courtly love? Because, I want you to understand this is like a theme which reflected the culture of the time. And the culture of the time was a little bit masculine culture. Courtly love was type of poetry which was written by courtiers. Okay? So, what is courtly love? Yes?
I think it is a traditional English theme.
Okay.
When a man see a woman and fall in love with her, he put himself in a room for 2 or 3
yes.
days. If the woman, if his beloved accepted him,
yes,
he will write the best poem.
Very good.
To express his beloved. And if she is rejected him, he will write the best poem to express his sadly feeling.
That's it. Yes, it is very traditional, very old English theme, and it was like Chaucer, a 14th century. Have you heard of Chaucer? Chaucer was, the father of English literature. He was writing courtly love, and before him, and it seems like courtly love was influenced by troubadour poets who used to live in France, and those who were influenced by Arab poetry. See, because in Arabic poetry we have poetry which was talking about love. Honestly, like the values of the time of the 16th century, like there were two values which were very prominent values: courtly love and heroism. In order to be a hero, you should be good at writing, courtly love. So courtly love was an exercise in masculinity. If any man wants to prove that he is a man, he should show his ability of writing such type of poetry. And unfortunately, this type of poetry denigrates women. I mean, man wants to prove his nobility, his sincerity, at the expense of blackening the image of woman. And this is something disturbing. I'm not sure whether some of you was disturbed, because some of you mentioned that, yes, the poet was noble, the poet was good, you see. It seems like some of you were tricked by the poet. Good. So we are dealing with traditional English theme written in an alien form, which is the sonnet. And in your response, you said Petrarchan sonnet. What is a Petrarchan sonnet? How many parts are there in the Petrarchan sonnet? There are two parts, the octave and the sisted. The octave and the sisted. Should I write for you like these things? Okay. So again, it's very important to notice what is happening in each part of the sonnet. What is happening in the octave? What is happening in the sisted? Octave and sisted. So the octave, in the octave we have 8 lines, and the sisted we have 6 lines. And she mentioned like that the Petrarchan sonnet was a little bit distinguished for its rhyme scheme. When we are talking about rhyme scheme, we have to look at the poem in this way. We have to look at the last line, eind. So we should start with A. More. It's a new rhyme. You see, shouldn't it be A? If no. Eind. Let's take the poem like this. Sorry. Because I want you to know how the rhyme scheme is taken. No problem. Okay, so we failed. Okay, so if we are talking about, we can do it in this way. Okay, eind is the first sound. So if we go, it should be given assigned A. More, it is another one, so it should be B. Then we have soar, which is exactly the same. So we have A, B, B, and then A. Okay, so we have A, B, B, A, then what? A, B, B, A. So this is what we call the octave. Okay? And now the sisted should be assigned. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now we have doubt. Okay? It should be what? C, D, D, C. So C, D, C, D. Then we have a new rhyme, which is E, E. So this is the rhyme scheme of the Petrarchan sonnet. I want you to be aware of because later this sonnet will not remain as it is. Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey, will come and develop this form, and it will assume a purely English identity. Now, identity, nationalism, these are issues which we might discuss when we are discussing the poem. I don't want to go far. let's go back to the poem. Have you read it aloud? I mean the poem. Have you read it aloud? How did it sound? Okay.
The first time I read it, I didn't feel sad, but after I understand the meaning,
So you started to feel with the poet. Okay. So I don't know, like how you read it. Did anybody like read the poem like in a lyrical and singing it? Like Whoso lost a hand, I know what is an ein? Or like
we heard it.
So it is available on the YouTube. Good. And which one? Like, did you like the singing?
The two one, the both.
Okay, both.
Yeah.
Okay.
One singing and another not singing. Just he read it.
He read it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me read it aloud for you. Whoso lost a hand, I know where is an ein, but as for me, alas, I may no more. The vain travel hath wearied me so sore. I'm of them that farthest cometh behind. Yet may I by no means my wearied mind draw from the deer. But as she fleeth afore, fainting I follow, I leave off therefore. Since in a net I seek to hold the wind. Who lost her hunt, I put him out of doubt, as well as I may spend his time in vain. And graven with diamonds and letters plain, there is written, her fair neck round about, noli me tanger, for Caesar I am, and while for to hold, though I seem tame. Very sad, huh? Who's sad? You or the poet?
The poet.
The poet. And you are not made sad?
He made us
Huh?
sad.
Look at him. He's poor. He's impoverished. He's abject. You know what's mean abject? Very poor. Because this is, what should happen in courtly love. We have a poet who's abject. Why? Because of the cruelty of a lady. So it is the lady who causes all this, misery for the poet. Why? Because she's not like compassionate. She doesn't understand him, and she causes. I bet you don't like this, of course. This is too much, but that what happened in courtly love. So a man wanted to confirm, his masculinity. How? How can you show yourself that you are a gentleman? Just by contrasting yourself, with a woman. Like, so we have here, if we have to look at the man and to assign some attributes to him, we'll find him what? Give some attributes. He's gentle. Go ahead. He's gentle, I bet sincere, noble, honest, yeah, self-confident, sensitive, and if you look at the lady, she's what? She's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, she's beautiful, arrogant. You have to be responsible for every word. Changeable, like fickle. What else? Cruel. Why? Why is she cruel? Because she doesn't reciprocate the poet his feelings. Okay. I think if we read it in courtly love, we might not enjoy the aesthetics of the poem. So let's look at the poem, because I said the culture of the time, before we have to understand the poem in its cultural and historical context. The 16th century was an age of expansion, was an age of even establishing its identity. Henry VIII, like who took power in 1519, was a very powerful king, and he wanted like to establish the idea of Great Britain. So he succeeded in getting Wales, because Wales was not part of the Great Britain, and even by force Ireland, in order to have. So he became the monarch of Great Britain, and during his time, England was exposed to the to Renaissance. And when I say Renaissance, we talk about the rebirth, the coming civilization. And of course, Italy, Rome, where the Pope was, it was the center of Renaissance. England also was powerful. It wanted to expand. The king, had an army and a fleet. So it was the age of chivalry, like knighthood. It was the age of heroism, because if you want to expand, if you want to annex a new land, you need heroes. So that was the culture of the time. And as we said, like heroism in that age, unfortunately, was not distinguished without something like courtly love. So courtly love was an issue. You cannot prove yourself. You cannot be a courtier, and you cannot be influential until you show that you are a courtly lover. Of course, like Henry VIII was a controversial king. He got married for 6 times. There were 6 queens. And he first got married like to Catherine, who was, the bride of his brother Arthur. Then he got married to Anne Boleyn, like the one whom he fell in love with. And I think Anne Boleyn, is in the background of the poem. But all these marriages had to be confirmed by the Pope in Italy. So the Pope had an upper hand. So if he wanted to marry or to change anything, he had to consult, or the Pope in Rome had to give him an agreement. But during his time, like later, he succeeded in 1533 to break up with the Catholic Church of Rome, and started to establish or to encourage the established church, which is of England, which was Protestant. So they had some differences with that, and he succeeded in fixing the English identity. So the issue of identity, it was there in politics. Nationalism. It was in politics. It was in religion. It was even at social level. Okay. Now, if we go to the poem, because I don't want to deprive ourselves from the aesthetics of the poem. Whoso lost to hunt, I know where is an Eind. It's a question declaring, that, for people, that whoever is interested in finding a hind, a deer, I can tell him. But as for me, alas, I may know more. So you see here, the poet is disinterested. Is disinterested in hunting. Why? So we ask why. And we expect that, in the octave, he's going to list the reasons. Why is he disinterested according to the poet? Why is he disinterested? Yes?
Because he tried to hunt and failed many times.
Because he tries?
Tried to hunt and failed.
Yeah, because sometimes, like when you try to hunt and you fail, you try to hunt and you fail, you get bored and you get disinterested. Good. But as for me, alas, I may no more. I'm not going to do it again. Why? In the third line, he's trying to say why. He's trying to warrant his decision, to justify his decision. He says, the vain travail, which is a French word, wearied me so sore, exhausted me. Like the efforts, the vain. What's mean vain? It's at some point, it is very important to understand the dictionary meaning of the words, the prose meaning of the poem. So at this stage, as you see, we are paraphrasing the poem. And paraphrasing the poem is only a step towards a total appreciation or a total understanding of the poem. The vain travail hath wearied. Yeah, the vain, the futile. Yes, without benefit. The vain travail hath wearied me so sore. Like wearied, exhausted you. But look at so sore. So sore. What do you see in so sore? Yeah, there is a kind of alliteration. So sore. Like somebody, this alliteration, so sore. The vain travail hath wearied me so sore. Somebody like complaining against like this. It was very painful. I'm of them that farthest cometh behind. So he is not going to be the first in hunting, but rather the last. Yet may I by no means my wearied mind draw from the deer. Again, he's asking question. Do you think like I'm giving up because of no reasons? But as she fleeth afore, fainting I follow, I leave off therefore. Why is he leaving? I leave off therefore. Yeah, because she is, as you see here, he's following her and she's fleeing. He's following, he's following her and she's fleeing. And because of that, he what? He got tired. And he decided, yes, to leave her. Now, in courtly love, in the traditional courtly love, the poet is pleading because of the cruelty of the lady. And he continues to be miserable, abject. But he never, appears like to be dignified here. Look at him. I leave off therefore. We might admire this and we say, what a dignified person he is. And perhaps this is, something unique about the poetry of Sir Thomas Wyalt. The courtly love written by Sir Thomas Wyalt, because he was not like traditional courtly lover, pleading without dignity. Here, as you see, he's taking a decision. He is a dignified person, and since a lady is, not aware of his pain, and she doesn't appreciate, his, love, he decided to leave off therefore. I leave off therefore. But look at fainting I follow. Here, I cannot leave the poem without commenting a little bit, about the alliteration here. Fainting I follow. Do you think this is a very nice alliteration? Does it fit with the atmosphere of somebody who is taking a decision, and this decision is taking, why? Because he's bored, he's not interested. Fainting I follow. The if sound here, the repetition of the if sound, shows what? His suffering, his disgust. Fainting I follow, and I leave off therefore. Look at these consonants are very strong. And again, these consonants have to do with his, decision to quit, with his decision, like, to leave. Since in a net I seek to hold the one. Wow. I think this is self-explanatory. What a very frustrating image, isn't it? Like, if somebody is trying to hold the wind in a net, do you think? How do you describe this, effort? If somebody is trying to hold,
He was his time.
it's a waste of time. Very disappointing. Very disappointing experience. Like somebody who is trying, like, to hold the wind, what? In a net. So do you think it will be held? No. Okay. Since in a net I seek to hold the wind, it's impossible. Who's lost to hunt? I put, him out of doubt. This is the beginning of the sisted, the second part of the poem. Who's lost to hunt? I put him out of a doubt. Like, the poet is in a position to advise other people. He's sagacious, very wise. And he was made sagacious by his own experience. As well as I may spend his time in vain. So the poet's personal experience made him like in a position to advise other people. He is going to spend his time in vain, and graven with diamonds and letters plain, there is written her fair neck round about. I think this line has some indication about the beauty. Because, in courtly love, yes, as you mentioned, the lady should be beautiful. There is written, what is written? Her fair neck round about, noli me tanger. Don't touch me. This is like in Latin, noli me tanger, for Caesar's I am. And we understand who's Caesar. Who's Caesar? Henry. So we are having a poet who fell in love with the king, potential wife or potential mistress. And that, is like very precarious, very dangerous. And perhaps you might have read that, he was put in prison like because of this, suspected relation. There was, some suspicion that he was in a relation, but there was no concrete evidence of that relation. So he was put in the tower, he was imprisoned, and Anne Pauline herself, who became the wife, was beheaded by the king. She, was executed by the king. Why? Because she was accused of adultery. And hold and wild for to hold, though I seem tame. Yeah, it's a paradox. How come you are wild and tame? And this paradox shows or reflects the nature, the elusive nature of that lady. So she's not attainable. She's very elusive. It is difficult to catch her. Now, today, like, this is what I want to say. Today, we have not read the poem as, what we said in the last lecture. So we talked a little bit about the atmosphere, the general context of the poem. Next time, we have to read, to delve deeper into the aesthetics and to see how the poet was successful or was not successful. So what you have to do, again, is to look at the poem, to look at, the figures of speech, to look at certain, to look at the tone, the attitude, and then we are going to talk about poetry by using specialized language and general language. I hope that you enjoyed listening. If not, like, you can complain. But do you have any question, like, before, or do you want to add anything? Yes.
You said that the sonnet consists of two parts. The first one is okay.
Yeah, no, the Petrarchan sonnet.
Yes.
We're talking about Petrarchan sonnet. The Petrarchan sonnet consists only of two parts. Now, I think I left for you in the reader something about the sonnet. So you have to study, like, what is the Petrarchan sonnet? You can read what is the Petrarchan sonnet, what is the Shakespearean sonnet, how this sonnet was developed, and how it became, or it assumed, like a very British form. Okay. Any other question? Thank you very much, and see you next time for a new lecture, on the same poet. Thank you.